In a landmark victory to the Tibetan struggle and the Tibetan people, the Tibet Policy and Support Act of 2020 was passed by the US Congress today. I am joined by the Central Tibetan Administration's President Sejong Dr. Lobsang Sangay, who is currently in the US in order to lobby for this bill. Thank you for accepting to speak to Tibet TV, Kong Sejong.
Thank you, Dinzavongjula and the team of Tibet TV there in Dharamsala.
Right, this is in fact a landmark victory to the Tibetan struggle. The fact that today the US House Congress passed the Tibet Policy and Support Act of 2020. First of all, tell us what's the significance of this bill?
This bill is significant. As you said, it's a landmark bill. In the last 20 years, the US Congress is passing a major bill on Tibet. So it is in solidarity with 6 million Tibetans who are suffering inside Tibet. Washington DC is saying, Tibetan brothers and sisters, we are with you. We are with your freedom struggle. We are for your justice, and we will pursue and support your cause. And this is also a great respect to the legacy of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And this is a major boost to the Tibetan freedom struggle, clearly. So it is historic. It is historic.
Okay, before you left for US this time, during a press conference in November, you talked about the lobbying efforts that you wanted to undertake in person in order to push this bill into law. The bill was at that time stalled at the Foreign Relations Committee. So how did the bill eventually go through? And also, is there any reason in terms of the time it took for the bill in order to be enacted into law? And also, what lobbying efforts you had to undertake in the lead up to the passage of this bill?
Yes, there's a long story, and I'll get to that at appropriate time down the line. Everybody made efforts. So all the Tibetan associations in America, including, Tibetan Youth Congress and SFT, all were involved in it, including ICT, called their members to support for the bill. So everybody made effort. So the House passed with overwhelming majority. But that's been a long time. And, the Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Jimmy McGovern, when I met them, and they told me, look, don't worry about the House. We should lobby the Senate, which is controlled by the Republican Party. So I made my efforts towards, the Senate, and then, reach out to many Republican senators like Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, and Romney, and others. But then still it got stuck. There was a glimmer of hope in the month of May. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee business meeting was called. Tibet was on the agenda, but then after a few items, the business meeting was adjourned and nothing happened from May till now. So I came in October, made efforts, and then the environment DC was such that it was impossible. Just before the election, President Trump got infected, and congressmen and senators were also infected. It was very chaotic. There was no chance, and at the end I asked our friends at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee whether it's worth coming back and trying again. And Michael, our friend, he told me we should put all our hands on deck, and then I should come back. So I came back in November. The very next day of my arrival, I met separately with the Democratic staff and the Republican staff online. And then we strategized, how should we go about it? And then I was told that in the second week of December, the business meeting will call and Tibet will be on the agenda. But second week, Friday, was when the Senate was, closing down. So in 3 or 4 days' time, you have to do, 3 or 4 months of work because from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, bill has to pass. It has to pass in the Senate floor. Then it has to go to the House because the Senate version has amendments, including the acknowledgement of Central Tibet Administration as which can reflect as an institution which reflects and represent the Tibetan in diaspora all over the world, and Sikyong as the president of the Central Tibet Administration. So that's a major amendment. We wanted it. But then you have to vote also at the House. So it takes a lot of time. But to cut it short, finally we found a breakthrough. Tibet bill was, taken out of all other bills. They're major bills. As you know, the Hong Kong bill died. Xinjiang bill didn't get out of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and so many others. But we managed to get the bill out of the out, and then we finally managed, and obviously the staff members and the senators all agree to attach it to the appropriation bill, and that's how it got passed. So this is a story in short, because when I left in November, so many of my friends told me it's impossible. Do you think anything can be done in Washington DC? Right here in DC also, people thought nothing can be done, but somehow, today is Sangbuchunzom, auspicious day, so it's a good thing. We managed to get all things done, thanks to His Holiness Dalai Lama, and thanks to all the monasteries, which prayed for the Tibet cause.
Okay, Kungu, in terms of the contents of the new bill, what are some of the differences, or are there any major differences between the Tibet Policy Act of 2002 and this new bill?
The 2002 Tibetan Policy Act and 2020 Tibetan Policy Support Act should be taken as one. But this is an amendment or improvement or addition to the Tibetan Policy Act 2002. So 2002 addresses the situation inside Tibet as an occupied Tibet, human rights violation, and appointment of a special coordinator, and which we should pursue or help the dialogue between envoys of His Holiness Dalai Lama and Chinese government representative. And also it calls for opening an office in Lhasa, of the US, and then provides funding for Tibetans inside Tibet mainly, and for scholarships and things like that. So these are very important. And in addition to that, now Tibetan Policy and Support Act strongly calls for religious freedom of the Tibetan people, and the Chinese government should not interfere in reincarnation process. If they do, sanction will be imposed, particularly on His Holiness Dalai Lama's reincarnation. And on environmental matters, Tibet being very important, being the water tower of Asia, and anyone who invests in Tibet should follow UN guidelines on development and things like that. Very important. And then this time it specifically says that the US consulate should be allowed to open in Lhasa, the capital city of Tibet. If the Chinese government doesn't allow that, then the Chinese government cannot open any consulate in America. So this is conditional, very strong. And one great legacy of His Holiness Dalai Lama is the democratic system or democratization of exiled community. So he's applauded for that. And then it also acknowledges the Tibetan people participating in election in 30 plus countries to elect members of parliament and Sikyong. And also, it clearly says that Central Tibetan administration reflects and represents aspirations of Tibetans in diaspora, and Sikyong is the president of Central Tibet administration. So, for the first time, CTA is legally acknowledged by the US Congress, and now by becoming law, the US government. So this is a major breakthrough. And then there is funding. No less than $9 million should be provided to Tibetans in India and Nepal, 8 million inside Tibet, 3 million for Radio Voice America, a little more than that, and 4 million plus for Radio Free Asia, and various scholarships for Tibetans inside Tibet and in exile. So all these are guaranteed for 5 years. So yes, we are asked, do you think all these are necessary, whether Voice of America is helpful or needed, things like that. But we have always supported all these projects because this help Tibetan people. So I'm glad that the Tibetan Policy and Support Act is a major political statement for Tibet, but also there is funding, and CTA is legally acknowledged, because wherever we travel, sometimes Chinese government say that, well, CTA is a separate organization, no one recognizes it, there is no support whatsoever. But this bill clearly says, no, America does acknowledge CTA as a political entity, which is a big deal.
With regard to the points of succession of Tibetan Buddhist leaders, including the succession of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and also the recognition of Central Tibetan Administration and its leader, that is Sikyong, as the president, as the legitimate representative of the Tibetans in diaspora in the new bill, what possible impacts do you see this bill will have on China?
If you read the Global Times after my visit to White House, and also the spokesman of the Chinese Foreign Ministry when I visited the State Department, they clearly say so-called Tibetan government exile is a separate organization, and no one should support it, and no one should meet officials. So this is their stance. Now this bill counters that and say no. What the Chinese government say is not acceptable, right? So the U.S. government acknowledges CTA and the Tibetan freedom movement, thereby sending a message to all over the world. Now the countries in Europe and Japan, Australia, others, they look at what Washington D.C. do, and the fact that Washington D.C. is acknowledging Tibetan movement. It's a huge political statement, particularly to Tibetans inside Tibet, to 6 million brothers and sisters. They're saying, we are with you. Your suffering is, we understand and we feel your pain, and things that we can do by, recognizing Tibet as a major international issue is the way to move forward. So yes. This bill will be read and heard all over the world, particularly by Beijing. And I'm glad that 6 million Tibetans inside Tibet will get to hear the positive development and support for Tibet.
Okay, finally, Kumud, this is, as you rightly said, is a huge victory for Tibetans and supporters all around the world. In fact, this will surely send a message of hope and courage, particularly to the Tibetans inside Tibet. And the fact that Kung you'll be completing your second term as the Sikyong of the Central Tibetan Administration in a few months to come, personally, how do you view this achievement, the fact that this bill is now becoming a reality?
For me, when I started in 2011, the month of May, we had this huge debate, in Dharamsala, Mrs. Okje, the special general body meeting. And then obviously, I was given in charge of the Central Tibetan Administration, and at the end of my term, finally I managed to have the Central Tibetan Administration legally or formally acknowledged by the US Congress and the US government. So that means I fulfilled quite a difficult task, actually, political task. So I'm glad that the next Sikyong will have easier path, in the sense CTA is legally acknowledged, funding is provided. Now he or she can focus more on political activities, right? I mean, he or she can double the funding now. He or she can, elevate the legal recognition of CTA by other governments around the world, and so a lot can be done. So I just feel politically I have fulfilled my task. Having said that, I'm grateful to the leadership of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the support extended by Tibetans all over the world. Really, they have been, very strong, and they have been with me all this time. But this task, the Tibetan Policy Support Act, would not have been, complete or succeeded without the blessings of His Holiness Dalai Lama. Tibetans all over the world, but particularly Tibetans in America, because when I left in November from Dharamsala, I appealed to them to write to senators, and they did. And then, particularly New York and New Jersey, they had to make calls to a couple of senators. They all did. So even from Washington D.C., as the bill was getting introduced, when I first saw the draft, I met Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Jim McGovern, and they told me, look, don't worry about the House, because we are in majority. You should go and lobby the Senate, which is under the control of the Republican Party. So I took their advice and took their guidance, and met Senator Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, Romney, Hawley. They are prominent up and coming senators. So they all extended their support. So I'm very grateful, number one, to the Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. She has been a rock solid supporter of Tibet and good friend of His Holiness Dalai Lama, and I've met her many times also. And I also want to acknowledge the majority leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, because he agreed finally to push the bill, and Senator Chuck Schumer, and then McGovern and co-sponsor Chris Smith, Senator Rubio and co-sponsor Ben Cardin. They all did fantastic job, right? And on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Senator Jim Risch and Bob Menendez, very grateful. But I'm acknowledging, and then obviously co-chair and chair of the House Foreign Relations Committee, right? Very, very grateful. But among all these Congress members, the staff members are key. So I want to acknowledge River Price from the Speaker's office, and Jennifer White, and Brian from the House Foreign Relations Committee, and Bethany Paulus from Rubio's Senate office, very helpful, and from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Michael Schaefer. He was all the way through. I mean, I'm in constant touch with him, very supportive. Charlotte, a longtime friend, and Lara Kroch from the Senate Republican side, right? And Chris Socha also, very, very supportive. They did all the hard work. And Jonathan Stiver, who was key in drafting the bill from the very beginning. He was with the Speaker's office before, then he was at USAID, and finally he's in the China Committee. So he played very important role. So all the staff members, played very important roles. I want to thank all of them, and Michael, especially to you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kungo. Congratulations to you and your entire team on behalf of everyone here at Tibet TV. Thank you once again for your time, Kungo.
Thank you very much. And then, of course, I want to acknowledge, the Office of Tibet here and their staff and ICT. They all did a very good job, and also making efforts to pass this bill and make it a success. So it's a teamwork. Finally, thank you very much.